Hi friends, welcome to our channel Global Health Helpline. Today we will learn about a homeopathic medicine Carboneum Sulphuratum from the book, Lectures on Homeopathic Meteria Medica by James Tyler Kent. Please subscribe our channel to be connected with us. Let's begin. Carboneum Sulphuratum. Modalities. The complaints aid symptoms of carbon bisulphide are worse in the morning, forenoon, afternoon, evening, night, before midnight. It is a remedy of great depth of action, frequently indicated and long neglected. Strong desire for open air and the open window, better in the open air but worse from a draught. It is our most useful remedy in patients broken down from the long use of alcoholic stimulants. Weakness and suffocation from ascending stairs. Bathing brings on many symptoms. Many symptoms are worse after breakfast. It is a most useful remedy to restrain the growth of cancer, like graphites, and at Bass cured lupus. He is extremely sensitive to every change of weather, especially to warm damp weather. A condition not unlike chlorosis is produced by this drug. It is very useful in chronic rheumatism, especially of the joints. Extremely sensitive to the clothing. It is sensitive to both cold and heat. Cold in general aggravates or brings on many symptoms. Worse from becoming cold, from cold air, after becoming cold, takes cold easily, takes cold from exposure to cold air when overheated. Like carbo-veg, it is a most useful remedy in collapse. Marked venous stasis in organs and parts. Constriction of any parts. Constriction like a band around parts. Constriction of the heart. It is suitable in clonic and epileptic spasms. Dwarfishness of body and mind. Distension of the blood vessels and varicose veins. Edema of the extremities. It is both better and worse after eating. Gradual shrinking of all the muscles, even to marked emaciation. The lymphatic glands are enlarged. Fainting followed by stupefaction and loss of memory. Symptoms are worse from cold feet, fat food, milk, warm foods, warm drinks ameliorate. Full feeling internally and general venous engorgement. Gouty condition of joints. Passive hemorrhage. Lack of vital heat. Internal and external heaviness. Induration of glands. Marked lassitude and constant desire to lie down. Many conditions are worse from a jar and from stepping. Anesthesia of the skin and mucous membranes. Weakness follows straining of muscles. Lying ameliorates except respiration and head symptoms. Feels better while lying. Complaints worse before, during and after menses. Motion increases all symptoms and he dreads motion. Mucus secretions copious, thick and viscid. Numbness of single parts and parts lain on. Orgasm of blood in the body. Pain in bones and glands. Pains of many kinds in all parts of the body. Short and quick attacks and at regular intervals. Paroxysmal pains. Sore bruised pains in body and limbs. Burning pains internal and external. Cutting, jerking and shooting pains. Pressing pains are very common in all parts. Stitching pains and itching stitching pains in all parts. Violent tearing pains, extending downwards. Wandering pains, wandering, jerking, stitching pains. Paralysis one-sided, of organs, painless. Pressure helps most symptoms. Pulsation all over the body. Pulse spasmodic and rapid. Pulse slow, 52. Rheumatic conditions with or without fever. Chronic rheumatic states. Extreme sensitiveness to pain. He is worse after pain and from standing. Stiffness in body and limbs. Complaints from summer heat. Dropsical swelling and swollen glands. Trembling all over, tubercular tendency, lungs and bowels. Twitching of muscles. Wine increases all his sufferings and brings on many complaints. Walking increases sufferings. Walking in open air aggravates many symptoms. He is worse from the heat of summer and from the cold of winter. Worse from warm wraps, warm room, warm bed and warmth in general, yet he is sensitive to cold. Extreme weakness in the morning, in old drunkards, in the heat of summer, during menses, after stool. Painful weariness in the morning. Mind. Very absent-minded and so irascible that he breaks things that happen to be in his hands. When spoken to. Anxiety in the morning, evening in bed, night, before midnight, of conscience, with fear, about the future, before menses. Biting things in delirium. Capricious at times. Cheerful in the morning after passing much flatus. Aversion to company. Concentration difficult when reading. Confusion of mind in the morning on waking, from mental exertion, from pain in the head, as if intoxicated. Very conscientious about small matters. Fantastic delirium at night, raving and tries to bite. Sees visions, excitement at night. Illusions of fancy. There is despair, discontentment, discouragement and distraction. Dullness of mind, in the morning. Thinking is very difficult. Very excitable. Exhilaration, bordering on drunkenness. Fear, morning, night. A death, of insanity, of misfortune, of people, of walking in the dark. Forgetful, forgets what she was to do with the things and held them in her hand. Frightened easily. Hilarity and extravagant gaiety. Hurried feeling. Hysterical conduct. Irresolution, indifference and mental sluggishness. Indolence. Worse in the morning. Imbecility and insanity. Ideas abundant at first, later confusion and stupefaction. Irritability in the morning. Weak memory, cannot find the right word, misplaces words when writing. His mood is constantly changing, morose, easily offended, rage, mental prostration. Religious affections. Very restless during the night, worse before midnight. Sadness in the evening, during chill, during fever, during perspiration. He sings and whistles. Inclination to sit in silence. Averse to being spoken to. Maniacal conduct, jumps out of the window. Stares at her hands with a vacant look. Starting during sleep. Suspicious. Talkative at first, later indisposed to talk. Talking in sleep. Persistent tormenting thoughts. Timidity. Unconscious. Violent actions. Weeping much, alternating with laughing, in sleep. Vertigo, in the morning on rising, afternoon, evening, better in open air, as if intoxicated during menses, while sitting. When stooping, a tendency to fall forward, when walking in open air. Head. Coldness of the forehead. Constriction like a band, a forehead, of the occiput. Dandruff on the scalp. A sensation of emptiness in the head. Eruptions, crusts, eczema, itching, moist, scaly, pimples, sore and painful. Erysipelas of the scalp. The head falls forward when walking. A sensation of fluctuation in the head on moving the head. Fullness in the head. In the forehead. The hair falls out. Heat in the afternoon, in forehead, in vertex. Heaviness in the head, after breakfast. Hyperemia of the brain. The scalp itches violently. Movements felt in the head. Nodules in the scalp sore to touch. Numbness of the vertex. Pain in the head in the morning in bed, on waking, at 9 a.m., in the afternoon, in the evening, at night, 10 p.m., better in the open air, worse ascending steps, binding up the hair. After breakfast, after dinner, after eating, from becoming heated, from ajar, from heavy stepping, from mental exertion, from motion, from shaking the head, after sleep, after stool, in a warm room. Headache comes on from cold, during chill, during fever. Rheumatic headaches. Catarrhal headaches. Headache with pain in back of the neck. Pulsating pain on motion of the head and when thinking or reading. Violent headache, increased until the mind is affected. Pain in the forehead in the morning on waking, lasting all day, violent in the forenoon. Pain in occiput evening and night. Pain in sides of head. One-sided headache, worse left. Pain in temples in the afternoon, worse shaking head and on stooping. Pulsating pain in temples in the morning on waking 6 a.m. Pain in vertex. Boring pain in forehead and temples. Burning pain in vertex. Cutting in temples, worse after dinner. Drawing pain in forehead 10 p.m. in occiput, in temples. Dull pain in head toward evening. Jerking pain in forehead. Pressing pain in the head in forenoon. Pressing pain in forehead with sleepiness, worse reading and stooping, over eyes, extending to eyes and temples. Pressing pain in occiput, in temples, extending to vertex, in vertex all day. Sore bruised pain in head. Stitching pain in temples worse on left side, extending to occiput. Tearing pains better in open air and during test, in forehead, occiput, sides, temples, worse on left side. Cold perspiration on forehead. The scalp is sensitive to the brush. Pulsation in occiput and temples. Electric shock in the head. Eyes. The eyelids stick together during the night. The discharges are acrid, bloody, purulent and yellow. Dullness of the eyes. Eruptions about the eyes, on the lids, pustules on upper lids that itch and burn. Falling lids. Granular lids. The eyes feel hot. Heaviness of the lids and they are sore on moving them. Catarrhal inflammation of eyes and lids. Conjunctiva full of dark veins. Insensibility of the cornea. Itching of the eyes and lids. Lacrimation in the open air and when reading. Pain in eyes on moving them. Aching, burning pain with headache, morning, when reading, evening, margin of lids when reading, in canthe. The pains are cutting, pressing, as from sand, sore, itching and tearing. Drawing backwards. Pressing in the evening with great heat in the eyes. Itching while reading and after stool. Pupils contracted, also dilated. Photophobia. Quivering in lids. Redness of eyes, of lids, edges of lids. Recurrent styes. Staring and sunken eyes. Swollen lids. Thick lids. Twitching lids. Ulceration of the cornea, of the lids. Weak eyes. Vision dim, objects seen too far off. Diplopia. Flickering. Loss of vision. Vanishing of sight. Myopia. Ears. Discharge from ear, bloody, fetid, offensive, purulent. Redness of the ears. Eruption behind cars. Sensation of flapping in ears. The ears are red and hot. Inflammation in middle car and auditory canal. Itching in ears. Noises in ears, morning, evening, night. Buzzing, cracking, chirping, fluttering, humming, reverberations, ringing. Roaring, rushing sounds. Pain in ears afternoon and evening, when swallowing. Pressing, stitching and tearing pains. Stitching after stool worse in right ear. Pulsation in ear. Stopped sensation in ear. Hearing at first acute, later impaired and finally lost. Nose. It has cured ear cough. It is a most useful remedy for chronic catarrh of the nose. The nose is cold, coryza in open air, with chill, constant, with cough, fluent, dry in evening. Discharges from nose of all kinds and consistency. Clear, copious, crusts and scabs, excoriating, greenish, hard chunks, offensive. Purulent, thick, viscid, water, thick yellow pus. Redness and burning of the tip of the nose. Dryness in nose. Epistaxis morning and evening, dark blood, on blowing nose. Itching in nose. Obstruction of nose. Fetid odor from nose. Oazina. Pain and soreness in nose. Burning in root of nose. It has cured polypus in nose. Smell acute for odors, later smell is wanting. Frequent sneezing. The nose is swollen. Ulcers high up in nose. Face. The face is bloated and chlorotic. Sensation of tension in the face. The face is cold and the lips are cracked. The face is discolored, bluish, dark, pale, sickly, yellow. Dry burning lips. Eruptions on chin, lips, around mouth, on nose. Acne rosacea on face and forehead. Acne of drunkards. Comedans. Crusty eruptions on face and nose. Herpes on face with tearing pains in limbs. Moist itching eruptions. Pimples, pustules, rash. Red eruptions on checks and nose. Scurfy scaly eruptions. Tetter on left cheek. Vesicles on face. Phlegmonis erysipelas. Expression is anxious, bewildered, sickly, suffering, vacant. Heat of face evening. During chill flashes. Itching of face. Pain in face in cold air, while lying. Burning face and lips. Drawing, sore, bruised, stitching and tearing pain in face. Cold sweat on face, stiffness of jaw. Sunken look. Swelling of face, edematous, glands, parotid, submaxillary. Tension in muscles of lower jaw. Ulceration of lips. Anesthesia of mouth and tongue. Aphthay of mouth and tongue. Bleeding of mouth and gums. The tongue feels cold. The tongue is cracked. The gums are detached from the teeth. The tongue is coated white, dryness of mouth and tongue in the morning with unquenchable thirst. Odor from mouth offensive. Putrid. Teeth. Burning mouth and tongue. Saliva is bloody. Copious flow of saliva. Speech difficult and stammering. Gums swollen. Taste is bad, bitter in the morning, foul, metallic, nauseous, pasty. Saltish, sour, sweetish. Tickling of soft palate after lying down. Ulcers in the mouth. The teeth are on edge and loose. Pain in teeth evening and night, in cold air, from cold water, during and after eating. When masticating, from touch, from warm food and drink, from external warmth, from both warm and cold things. The pains are drawing, jerking, stitching, pulsating, stitching, tearing, jerking, stitching at 9 a.m. Pulsating evening and night. Tearing in afternoon and in cold air. Throat. Catarrh of the throat in cold weather with choking dryness, redness and sensation of fullness. Constant desire to hawk. Inflammation of the throat with gangrenous tendency. Sensation of a lump in throat. Mucus in throat in morning, viscid, tasting salty. Pain in throat on coughing, on swallowing, on empty swallowing. Burning in throat extending to stomach. Burning in esophagus. Rawness and soreness. Stitching on swallowing, in esophagus as if bone had lodged in throat. Scraping the throat, spasms of the esophagus. Constant disposition to swallow. Difficult swallowing. Swelling of throat and tonsils. Ulceration of throat. Induration of glands of the external throat. The glands of neck are swollen. Enlarged thyroid gland. Appetite diminished or wanting with easy satiety. Appetite is ravenous without relish of food. With aversion to food. Aversion to fats, fish, food, meat, milk. Cold sensation in stomach. Sensation of constriction. Desire for beer. Cold drinks, sour things, distension after eating. Sensation of emptiness. Eructations empty, after eating, ineffectual, after milk, while walking. Eructations ameliorate. Eructations acrid, bitter, empty, a food, foul, loud, nauseous, rancid, sour, water brash. Fullness in stomach after eating. Stomach, gnawing in stomach, heartburn after eating, flushes of heat in stomach, heaviness, hiccup and loathing of food. Nausea in morning, afternoon, night, after eating, with fainting, better after eructations. During headache, on entering a room or going into open air. Pain in stomach in the morning, in night, after breakfast, after cold drinks, after eating, during menses. Burning after stool, cramping and pinching, pressing pain in stomach after eating and after stool. Soreness in stomach, stabbing extending to back, stitching pains, pulsation, retching with the cough, a tied together feeling, thirst in the morning, burning thirst during chill, extreme thirst during heat, drinks large quantities of water. Vomiting in the morning, on coughing, after eating, with headache, during menses, vomiting bitter water blood. Food, green mucus, sour, watery. Abdomen, sensation in abdomen as if diarrhea would come on. Distension after eating, tympanitic. Abdominal effusion, flatulence in abdomen, obstructed, in coical region. Fullness after breakfast, heaviness and gurgling, hardness of the abdomen, of the liver. Liver affections with dropsical swelling of feet. Pain morning, afternoon, evening, night, as if diarrhea would set in. After eating, on inspiration, before and during menses, on motion, on pressure, in coical region, in hypochondria after sitting, in hypogastrium, in the inguinal region, in the liver, in the left lobe of liver. In umbilicus. Burning pain in abdomen, in hypochondria, in liver. Cramping in abdomen, in the morning, 10 a.m., afternoon, night, before stool, after stool, in umbilicus, in hypogastrium. Cutting in abdomen, before stool, in hypogastrium. Drawing pain in abdomen, in navel. Dragging in abdomen, jerking pain in abdomen, in left hypochondrium. Pressing pain in abdomen, in hypogastrium, in liver. Sore bruised pain in abdomen. In liver, stitching pains in abdomen, in hypochondria, in hypogastrium, in inguinal region, sides of abdomen, liver. Tearing in abdomen, in umbilical region extending to bladder. Retraction of navel, plumbum. Rumbling in abdomen, before stool. Tension, trembling after stool, weak feeling after stool. Constipation with much belching, difficult stool, ineffectual urging, insufficient stool. Diarrhea in the morning. 5 a.m., after breakfast, night, noon, after eating, after dinner, painless, with much rumbling, chronic, pain in region of umbilicus with thin, yellow, frothy stools, stool offensive, sour, pasty, thin. Watery. Some workers in carbon bisulphide suffer from constipation and some from diarrhea. Dysentery with bloody mucus stools. Eruptions about the anus. Excoriations at anus and between the nates. Fistula in ano. Flatus copious, offensive, while walking, ameliorates. Formication in the anus. Hemorrhage of bright red blood. Hemorrhoids, bluish, chronic, external, large, during menses, very sore, inactivity of the rectum. Involuntary stool during urination. Moisture at the anus, itching and burning. Itching in the morning. Pain in the rectum after stool, during stool. Burning and itching. Burning during stool, after stool. Cramping, stitching in anus and neck of bladder during urination. Cutting and pressing outward. Soreness in anus, after stool. Stitching pain in anus, evening, during stool. Stitching in anus and neck of bladder to urethra during urination. Tearing in anus. Teensmas during stool. Constant prolapsus of rectum. Urging to stool in the morning, after breakfast, 8 a.m. 10 a.m., during stool. Worms. Ascarides, lumbricoides, tiny eye. The stool is acrid, black, bloody, brown, hard, knotty, leonteric, light-colored, like sheep dung. Bladder. Catarrh of the bladder with mucus sediment in the urine, pain in the bladder, aching, cramping in the neck of the bladder, pressing pain, stitching in the anus and neck of the bladder to the urethra during urination. Paralysis of the bladder, retention of urine, teensmas of the bladder, urging to urinate, at night, constant, ineffectual, painful. Urination, dribbling, dysuria, feeble stream, frequent, especially at night. Involuntary at night, in sleep. Suppression of urine, gleety discharge from urethra, bleeding from urethra, itching in the urethra with a sensation of drops of urine. Burning in the urethra during urination and during stool. Cutting during urination. Urine, acrid, albuminous, bloody, burning, cloudy on standing, dark, red copious, offensive, scanty. Sediment purulent, mucus, white. Atrophy of testes. Men. Erections violent. Erections absent. Complete impotency. Hydrocele. Inflammation of glans penis. itching of the genitals, scrotum, pain in testes during rest, burning in spermatic cords, drawing in testes, stitching pain in testes, in spermatic cords, perspiration on genitals in evening, on scrotum, relaxed genitals, seminal discharge too soon during coition, seminal emissions at night, shrunken organs, sexual desire wanting, swelling of the prepuce, of testes, of epididymis, tuberculosis at testes, women, atrophy of the ovaries, cancer of the uterus, aversion to coition, eruption and excoriation, inflammation of the uterus, itching of the vulva, leucorrhoea, acrid bloody, burning, copious, before and after menses, milky thin white, watery. Menses absent, excoriating, black dark, delayed first menses, irregular, late or too soon, offensive painless. Copious at first, later scanty, short, suppressed, slow passive hemorrhage from uterus. Pain in uterus, burning, soreness, weak labor pains. Women who work in carbon bisulphide are often sterile. Encysted tumor on vulva, air passages, catarrh of air passages, constriction of larynx causing cough, heat in larynx, inflammation of larynx, irritation of larynx and trachea, mucus in larynx, pain in larynx, burning in larynx, rawness in larynx and trachea, soreness in larynx and trachea, laryngeal phthisis, rattling in the trachea. He constantly clears the larynx very sensitive, tickling in larynx and trachea, hoarseness morning and evening, with coryza, in damp weather, voice is lost, fast breathing, it has served well in asthma, asphyxia from alcohol and from coal gas, difficult breathing, evening, night ascending in a close room, when coughing. After eating, after slight exertion while lying, must have windows open, on falling asleep, on waking. Respiration raffling, short, sighing. Suffocation at night and in a warm room, wheezing, whistling. Cough in morning, evening, night, before midnight, in cold air, asthmatic, on becoming cold, from constriction of larynx, dry, hacking hoarse, from irritation in larynx, bronchial tubes and trachea, loose morning cough. Lying down in evening, paroxysmal, from rawness in larynx, from scraping larynx short, waking one from sleep, spasmodic, suffocative, from talking, from tickling in larynx and trachea, whooping cough. Expectoration. In daytime, morning, evening, night, moody, copious, greenish, mucus, offensive, purulent, tasting putrid and salty, viscid, yellow. It has cured paroxysmal ear cough. Anxiety in chest, in the heart. It has been of great service in cancer of mammae. Very stubborn catarrh of chest. A sensation of coldness in chest. Constriction of chest in evening, pleural dropsy. Emphysema. Eruptions on the chest. Vesicles. Erysipelas of the mammo. Feeling of fullness in the chest. Heat in chest and bleeding from lungs. The mammo are indurated. Inflammation of bronchial tubes, heart, lungs, pleurae, mammo. Itching all over chest but especially in axilla and mammae. Violent oppression of chest. Pain in chest on coughing, on motion, in sides of chest, in heart, aching, burning in middle of chest and in left side. Cutting pain in chest, in left lower chest to back in breathing. Pressing pain in chest, in mammo, in left side. Rawness in chest with cough. Soreness in chest from coughing. Stitching pains on deep breathing, in left side of chest through to back, in the sternum extending upwards. In here T, flying burning stitches in chest. Tearing pains in chest. Palpitation of heart in evening, in anemic patient S, with anxiety, from slight exertion, from motion, visible, tumultuous. Perspiration in axilla, a very useful remedy in phthisis. A continuous sensation of weakness in chest. Back. Coldness of the back, lumbar region. Eruptions on the back. A heavy load between the scapulae. Itching of the back. Pain in the back, night, on breathing, during chill, during menses, on motion, while sitting. Pain in cervical region, between scapulae. Pain in lumbar region morning on waking, during menses, while sitting. Pain in lumbar sacral region in morning on waking. Pain in sacrum in morning on waking, during menses. Pain in coccyx. Aching in back, in lumbar region, in sacrum. Bruised feeling in lumbar region. Burning in back, between scapulae. Drawing in the cervical region, in lumbar region. Pressing pains in the back, in lumbar region. Stitching pains in back, in cervical region, in scapulae, in lumbar region. Tearing pain in cervical region. In lumbar region. Stiffness in cervical region. Tension in back, in cervical region, in lumbar region on ascending, in sacrum worse on ascending. Weakness in back, in lumbar region. Limbs. Anesthesia of arms and hands. Coldness of limbs, with headache. upper arms, hands, fingers, lower limbs, knees, legs, feet in evening in bed. Constriction of lower limbs. Contractions of muscles and tendons, upper limbs, hands, fingers. Cracked shin of hands. Cracking in the joints, in the right shoulder. Cramps in the limbs, upper limbs, thighs, legs, calf in bed, foot, soles, toes. Blueness of nails during chill. Emaciation of limbs. Eruptions on limbs, herpes on back of hands, pimples, impetigo, vesicles between fingers. Excoriations between nates, between thighs. Formication of limbs, upper limbs, forearms, hands, legs, feet. Heat of hands, palms, feet, soles. Heaviness of limbs, upper limbs, lower limbs, legs, feet. Hip joint disease, itching of the limbs, upper arm, forearm, hands, lower limbs, thighs. Milk leg has been cured by this remedy. Convulsive motion of limbs like chorea. Numbness of upper limbs, lower limbs. Pain in limbs during chill, paroxysmal, rheumatic, in joints, gouty. Pain in upper limbs during the night, paralytic in left arm. Rheumatic in shoulder, in elbow on motion, rheumatism in elbow, in hand, gouty in hand. Pain in lower limbs, rheumatic, worse on motion, sciatica from taking cold, in thighs after dinner, neuralgia in thighs. In knees, in hips, in hollow of knee. Pain in leg, rheumatic, in ankles in morning, in os calcis on ascending steps, in fact after dinner and while walking. Aching in forearm. Burning pain in limbs, in shoulder. Upper arm, forearm, hand palm, thighs, feet, soles, joints of feet. Drawing pains in limbs, shoulder, upper arm, elbow, forearm, wrist, hands, fingers, lower limbs, hips, thighs while walking, hollow of knees, leg. Calf, few itching, stitching pains, deltoid muscle. Jerking pains in hip and ankles on ascending. Jerking, stitching in all the limbs, in biceps, in fingers, in thumb, in thighs, in legs, in toes. Pressing pains in left forearm, worse learning on it in left heel. Sore, bruised limbs, joints, upper limbs, lower limbs, thighs, legs, soles when walking. Stitching pains in limbs from every change of weather, in joints, in upper limbs, in right shoulder, in cold, damp weather, extending down arm. In upper arm, forearm, elbow, wrist, hand, fingers, lower limbs, hip, thighs, ankles, feet, toes while walking. Tearing in all the limbs, wandering about, sudden pains, in joints, upper limb, shoulder, upper arm, elbow, forearm. Wrist, hands, finger joints, lower limbs, knee, calf, ankles, feet, toes, first toe. Paralysis of extensors of wrist, of lower limbs, perspiration of hands, of feet, cold, offensive, profuse. Restless legs and feet. Stiffness of limbs, fingers, of lower limbs, of knees. Swelling of hands, lower limbs, legs, ankles, feet. Dropsical swelling of limbs with liver affections. Tension in hollow of knee and legs. Tingling of limbs, upper and lower hands and feet. Trembling of limbs, upper limbs, forearm, hands, lower limbs. Twitching of the limbs, upper limbs, hand, lower limbs, thighs, leg, feet. Ulcers on lower limbs, legs, feet. About the nails. Varicose veins, lower limbs, thighs, knees, legs. Sleep and dreams. Deep morning sleep. Dreams, amorous, anxious, a danger, a death, distressing, of previous events, fantastic, frightful. Of ghost, horrible, unpleasant, vexations, vivid. Late falling asleep. Restless all night. Sleepiness in morning, afternoon, after 3 p.m., evening, after dinner, after eating, while reading, sleepless before midnight. With sleepiness, from thinking, after waking. He is not refreshed after sleep. Waking difficult, early, or late, frequent. Coldness in morning in bed, in afternoon, evening, 7 p.m. 8 p.m. Icy coldness. Chilliness during menses. Chill after eating, in evening, then sweat during sleep. Fever in the evening and during the night. Nightly fever, with chilliness, burning heat at night. Fever without chill. Dry heat at night. Extreme heat. Flashes of heat. Fever without perspiration. Septic fevers. Fever with shivering. Perspiration in daytime, morning, evening, night, during anxiety. Cold, on coughing, while eating. After eating, on slight exertion or motion. Profuse sweat during the night. Sweat during and after sleep. Offensive, sour at night. Complaints come on if exposed while sweating. Skin. Anesthesia of the skin. Biting after scratching. Burning of the skin after scratching. Coldness of skin. Chapping and cracks in winter. Discoloration. Blueness, liver spots, red spots, yellow. Dryness with burning. Eruptions. Biting, blisters, boils, burning, discharges, corrosive, glutinous, yellow fluid, dry, eczema. Herpetic eruptions, scabby, scaly, tearing pain, zoster. Eruptions, itching, like measles, phygenic, pimples. Pustules, rash after scratching. Scabby eruptions, moist, worse after scratching. Scabies. Smarting eruptions. Eruptions worse after scratching. Suppurative eruptions, tubercles, urticaria, nodular worse after scratching. Vesicles filled with yellow fluid. Erysipelas with much swelling and covered with vesicles. Excoriation, after scratching. Excrescences. Formication all over body. Indurations and skin. Itching, jerking all over body. Itching at night, in a warm bed. Itching, pricking here and there all over. Sticking in the skin, after scratching. Ulcerative pains in skin. Ulcers, black, bleeding, burning, cancerous, deep, discharging. Bloody, copious, ichorous, offensive, yellow pus, fistulous, indolent, indurated, painful. Thanks for watching full video. Please subscribe our channel. Click on the links for more videos.